everybody's doing tonight. It is I, a guy. Nautilus, thank you for the first Yellow Smooch. Lovely Kiwi, it's lovely to see you, Beans. And, question. What kind of background noise would you guys like for today's stream? Short in his chair. Oh, it's more like I'm slumped back in my chair, knowing what I am about to have to do. Hold on. Alright, I stand up. I get up. Distant car traffic. Okay, I'm down with that. Let's see what we got here. Alright, where is the audio capture for that? Properties. Hi, Vulpin. I haven't seen you in an age. How are you doing, darling? Something's not right. Isn't getting captured. Nautilus, thank you for the hydrate. Do that just a moment. There we go. I think we got the cars up and running now. Let me know how the volume is. Well, and squats. Alright. Well, it's good to get the blood pumping before studying. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Ooh. I needed that. Some good blood flow to the legs. I've been sitting around for too long. Alright, chat. For those of you who are unaware, I have my first final tomorrow. It's actually my only final. But, because of this, I'm a little bit stressed. And since I couldn't get enough people to play, Lethal Company with, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna do this on stream, so I'm forced to actually do it and be honest about it. So we are going to be doing some studying, just soft studies. And I'll probably end up like quietly explaining some of the concepts as I go along, just to cement it in my memory. So you may have a fox whispering some interesting facts in your ears, so look forward to that, I suppose. Oh, welcome in, B. I don't remember if I said hi to you, but welcome. Blah, 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 blah. Just open up my online textbook. How's everyone doing tonight? You may hear some pen sounds as I jot down some notes. as well as some flipping pages as well. Part of me wishes I had a physical textbook, just so I could make like a nice sound as I got through the pages. But I have to run all over the damn textbook anyway, so it might be a little bit too much. Slight issue every time I look down. I lose some track. I like tilt my camera a little bit. Okay. For this exam, it's thankfully not cumulative, it's just the last third of the class. And in that, we've got quite a bit of content to cover. Language acquisition is a very, very interesting topic. Unfortunately, I'm being taught it by someone who is not very good at it. Not saying I'm great at it either, but when you have to read the textbook and just hope, you know it's not a great situation. But it's fine. We'll make it out alive. Probably. Oh, here's something you may not have known. When you're born, you have the ability to determine any sound from any language. Those little sounds are called phonemes. And no matter whether it's from your native language or a completely random one, when you're born, you're able to determine all of them due to a funny little area on the left side of your brain. But that ability changes with time. At around 3 months, children begin the cooing stage, where they mostly vocalize vowels. Little bits here and there, but no consonants. That takes another 3 months to develop, around the 6-month mark, where we get to the common babbling phase. This is where you might see things like mama, dada, and all that kind of stuff. Though, funnily enough, it doesn't mean anything. Babbling is just that. A babble. It doesn't mean anything. The child doesn't understand word content yet. They're just putting together consonants and vowels in a new way as their mouth starts to develop a little bit more. And around 10 months, apparently, that's when we start to see that ability to determine all the different sounds from every language, it fades away. And that leaves most people with only the ability to perceive phonemes of their main language, and theoretically, they have much more difficulty learning ones of other languages past that point. At ages from 9 months to 12, we start to see first words. And towards the latter half of that, using words to attract adults' attention. From 18 months to 24 months, we see the first combinations of words, trying to mess around with the word order, making compounds, just kind of experimenting with the building blocks that you're handed. It takes around 2 to 3 years before they start getting into real basic meaning, which is a relatively long time, to be fair. Okay. Did I hear something? Another thing I need to do. Remember, kids, to do your best on your exams, there is one thing you should always know. Cheating is always an option. I do not recommend it most of the time, but for things like this, where it's a freshman grade class, and nobody cares, you could. I'm still trying to study because I'd like to do it on my own, but if I think my grade is in actual danger, well, there are things you can do to prevent that. Because at the end of the day, my degree doesn't depend on my knowledge of being able to memorize facts from a textbook that is 3 years outdated. However, doesn't make it any less interesting. It feels like flying, but maybe we're dying. I was looking over some of my past quiz results. Oh, right, it's being used to record my stupid face. I am a fool. Don't know if this is going to be important, but I'm still going to write it down just in case. Telegraphic stage of language development. Children tend to use open classy words. which I think means anything but function words like the, is, those kind of things where they kind of go in the middle of everything. Hollow phrastic stage. Reduce. One word utterances with meaning. That's fine. I'm not going to have to do any data set questions. Dun, 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 dun. Fun fact, apparently, the exam, which is tomorrow, is still having question revisions the day before. So I gotta say, I'm not looking forward to this. I'll take a picture of this one later. Overextension. Overextension is a very interesting phenomenon. That is when a child sees, let's say this, a mother points at their dog and calls it a dog. Says, "Oh, that is your pet dog, child." And child says, "Okay." They kind of just register that in their mind. They're like, this four-legged thing is a dog. And then they see a cat. They don't know the word for a cat. So they'll point at it and call it a dog as well. Because in their mind, they overgeneralize the term that they received for the four-legged creature, like, oh, maybe that means all of these. And until you receive some sort of outside input to the contrary, they'll continue to do it. Alright. I've gathered all the information I can from that. maintenance view. Okay, I know that now. The maintenance hypothesis says that if you don't get exposed to anything, you're going to permanently lose the ability to get those, but that's just not true. Got some new information marker. Okay, that is good to know. These multiple choice ones are gonna kill my ass. Okay, Crane Nakayama. Okay, next. All right, next. Everything else here was surprisingly correct, so I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, next. Let's see what I need to review. There is a question on specific language impairment. Let's see if we can find that. Indeed, of open. I hope you're having a lovely, lovely night. Excuse me. seem like it's in that chapter. Here we go, chapter 10. Ah, yes, here's something important. The difference between bottom-up and top-down models. So, the difference here is, when you hear a sentence, how do you process it? With bottom-up processing, that assumes that you listen to the whole thing, and then take the bits and pieces, one by one in a row, and then determine the meaning from that, which sounds pretty fair. Top-down processing is based on inferences. This is something your mind automatically does while you're reading a sentence. You'll be halfway through it, and then it'll try to start processing it to save time before you even reach the end of it. Same thing goes when you hear a sentence. Let's see if I can find a good example here. Oh, here's something interesting. You can actually experience top-down processing yourself by doing this little trick. If someone is speaking to you and you know the context of the sentence, and let's say just a loud buzz comes over one of their words, but you know what they were going to say, your brain can basically autocomplete it, and you'll hear it, even though there was some sort of noise covering it up. It's very interesting. Good evening, Paint. I hope you're doing well. Oh, another interesting example for this. Thank you for the hydrate. Grade. Now, that sounds like two completely separate things. If I'm talking about the weather, you might think that I just said gray day, referring to overcast. Or, if I'm talking about, like, meat or eggs, you'd probably think I was saying grade A. But the phonemes are exactly the same. They are the same pronunciation, but depending on the context, your top-down processing will basically say, okay, we're talking about this one, not the other one. Another example would be nitrate, or nitrate versus nitrate. Those are pretty similar in terms of their pronunciation, but if I said nitrate or nitrate in a laboratory, you'd probably autocorrect it to nitrate, since it's the chemical. Whereas if I said nitrate while discussing booking a hotel, you probably autocorrect it to nitrate. So even when the bottom-down processing fails, hearing the phoneme would have given you like the wrong word for the context, your top-down will override it and basically tell you what's supposed to go in that slot. That can mess with you, but most of the time it's helpful. Lexical access. I remember this stuff. Okay, this is good. This is good. Excuse me. Then there's the actual type parts of the brain that use or that contribute to brain functionality when it comes to language. Broca's area and Wernicke's area are the most important here. We know that they affect language because we have seen people who have sustained injuries to these areas. This can cause something known as aphasia, which is basically just, hey, something messes up with your language processing in one way or another. Someone with Broca's aphasia, taking damage to that part of the brain, will start stuttering heavily. Their words become choppy, they'll have difficulty recalling correct words. They'll very clearly know what they're trying to say. They're trying to respond to a question, but it might come out as, let's say a doctor asks, "Could you tell me what you have been doing in the hospital?" A patient with Broca's aphasia might say, "Yeah, sure. Me go, PT. Nonotakt, speech 2 times, read, ripe, Reich, right practice, getting better." So, like, they very clearly know what they're trying to say, but it's almost as though they're having trouble getting it out. Wernicke's aphasia is very different. If you sustain damage to the Wernicke's portion of the brain, well, you don't have that choppiness. In fact, your speech is incredibly fluent. But it doesn't make any sense. For those people, what they lose is the sense of what they're trying to say, basically. Whatever they're saying might make perfect sense to them in their brain, but what comes out is typically filled with jargon and nonsense words. Here is an example of a sentence spoken by someone with Wernicke's aphasia. "The only thing that I can say again is matter or mater fish, sudden fishing, sued into an accident to miss the purtles." So, unless you are the Jabberwocky, that didn't make any sense to you. And as such, Wernicke's aphasia folks have a lot more difficulty communicating because they are actually unaware of of the issue. People with Broca's aphasia, they are fully aware that they are speaking slowly and it's going to be hard for other people to understand them. With Wernicke's aphasia, it's as if they're in their own world, language-wise. It makes perfect sense to them, but to anyone else, no idea. Oh, my bones. Okay. There's a lot of different ways to study these the brains like this. There's a number of different scans you can use. We are actually tasked with knowing some of these scans and how they work, as well as their strengths and weaknesses. So let's work on that next. First off, we have event-related potentials. I had to stifle a laugh in class because the teacher kept on calling them ERPs, and I'm sure that the people in this chat know why that was giggle-worthy. So, what is an event-related potential? So, your brain releases electricity, basically at every moment of the day, as it's sending signals to different parts. We are able to measure these electrical signals to some extent. measures electricity. Do 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 do. Both strength and altitude over time. Okay, we're supposed to learn the ups and downs of these different methods, but in the textbook it actually doesn't say. Oh, that's annoying. I'll have to check back in on that. Next up is Magneto Ensof. Oh god, I cannot pronounce this. That is a long ass word. I'm gonna try to say this again. Encephalography? Oh god. Magnetoencephalography. Jesus. We love having a single word so long that it requires a 3-letter acronym. Their acronym is MEG. Let's see. Ooh, this records small changes in the brain's magnetic fields. Also based on the electricity to some extent. Both of these provide data on how the brain reacts over time. Porality. So I guess that one way to say that is they have good temporality. It allows us to observe over time. Though where? Ah, I see, I missed 2 of them. There are 2 other forms of imaging, one of which I'm certain that you guys have heard of before. We have CT scans and MRIs. Whoever's watched any doctor show in existence, if you haven't heard those before, I'm surprised. MRI stand for magnetic resonance imaging. Resonance imaging. What do we got here? Can reveal lesions in the living brain shortly after damage occurs. What else do we have here? We have... what the fuck? Functional positron emission tomography. Every time I read one of these words, I wonder if I'm actually hallucinating. FPET scans and fMRIs. Okay. So these measure blood flow and oxygen utilization in different areas of the brain. That's interesting. Okay. So what I'm gathering here is that our first 2 over here, the event-related potentials and the MEG, both of them have good measurements over time, since blood and oxygen are rather slow processes. However, the blood and oxygen have a better imaging. It's more specific, for lack of a better term. What else do we have here? Language and brain development, brain plasticity, critical period. I know all that, that's not bad. The story of Jeannie and the feral children. We basically learned that, hey, the language at which you develop, or pardon me, the age at which you start to develop language, at the end of the day, is the greatest factor in whether or not you're able to do so successfully. Pardon me. But it also finds that children that are completely isolated from everything, any form of language, and then are exposed within that critical period, even if it's very late, will be able to fully develop grammar and everything, although later than everyone else, obviously. So if you go until age 6, never being exposed to a single phrase or anything, and then you are put in an environment where you taught, you will be able to develop. I think that's very cool. We got linguistic savants who are able to learn a lot of languages all at once, though they typically suffer in other areas such as mathematics. Here we are, specific language impairment. I was told by a TA there would be a question on this one, despite it being so niche and not being important in the slightest. Specific language impairment. Okay, so apparently it only affects linguistics. They do not suffer deficits in any other area. They have problems with function words. They also have difficulties with inflectional suffixes. da, 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 da. Ah, I see. So they have difficulty with, like, pluralizations and such. They might have difficulty adding an S to something to, how do you call? Okay, here's a good example. Here we go. Not being able to do plurals, they instead, a child with it instead said, meow meow chase mice. Though he said meow meow to illustrate that there were 2 cats rather than 1. That's interesting. Da, 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 da. In addition, studies of certain children. Okay, interesting. Lexical decisions. That's the whole response time thing, as well as priming. So with that, priming is basically... Oh, hi Blippy, thank you. Priming is basically when you say a word and it kind of like lights up your brain for a minute, and suddenly it becomes easier to think of other words that are related to it. This isn't always based on definition. It can be due to similar sounds. Like, think about it this way. Or, more accurately, it doesn't have to be based on the same context. So, easy example first. Priming. Let's say that I mention doctors. Suddenly, in your brain, it becomes easier for you to say the word nurses. You're associating them based on definition. Indeed, Father, it is a fox. How are you doing, darling? We're just going over some notes. So that's priming. But priming also works in different contexts. Let's think. Okay, so think of words with multiple meanings, right? Sheepdog. People know what a sheepdog is, right? It's the dog that you use to herd sheep for, oh god, I'm forgetting the term for that now. Heck. What do you call a person who... A shepherd. There we go. Okay, but yeah, if I say sheepdog, it activates a couple different words in your brain. Sure, it might activate other dog breeds and such, but it'll also activate wool, because sheep is in that first word of the sentence. It's a compound word. So despite the word meaning one thing, the piece of it that sounds like something else is activating another set of words that may be completely irrelevant. There are other interesting examples of this. I'm trying to remember them. I don't need to know the examples for the record. It's just good practice. Excuse me. But yeah, you get the general idea. Let's see what else we have here. We've gone over aphasia, we've gone over Broca and Wernicke's areas. We've gone over the different types of scans that we can use to monitor brain activity. Well, SpongeBob, thank you very much for the follow, sweetheart. Welcome to the library, and I hope you enjoy your stay. Oh, here's something interesting. Errors. People make errors in their sentences all the time. I am certainly not immune to it. I stumble over my words constantly. But there are some sentences that people will never mistake. There's just some mistakes you don't make in language. That just doesn't happen. Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? I suppose you do. Hello, Coco Cat. Welcome in. When you're first learning language, when you're trying to negate a sentence, what do you think of to do it? You're probably looking for some alternate word that will do it for you. It'll just tack it on to the beginning. Negates the whole thing. Or maybe you're going to switch a word to better define a definition. You know what you probably wouldn't do? And in fact, studies have shown that you will never do, any child will never do. They will not reverse the order of every word in that sentence to convey a negation. They just won't do it. It never happens. And like in one way, sure, I guess that could make sense. You fucking flip the sentence on its head, and then that means the opposite. Cool. But it just doesn't happen. Some errors are just banned in language. Your brain will not naturally make these errors unless you actively try and force them to do it. And even then, you're going to find it difficult to do. That's because everything we do in language is structure dependent. When you speak, it is because in your brain, you have some sort of idea you're trying to convey. When you think about that idea, it comes out in a certain way. It's preordained. No matter how you do it, your brain thinks about this idea in one way, and it will come out in some sort of structure reminiscent of that way. You can use different words. You can mess around with the word order a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's still structure dependent. You're going to have your subject, verb, object order. Unless you're in a language that does a different order, you're going to do it that way. You're not going to just flip it around and mess around. It just doesn't happen. Unfortunately, we can't give a set in stone reason as to why our brains are like that, but the fact of the matter is we're able to observe that it doesn't happen, and just based on that we can say that people don't go after independent structures in language, no matter how old they are, how far along they are in the learning process of a language. It just doesn't happen. We went over a number of case studies that talked about similar subjects. I'm going to go through those next since they're fairly important. So first off, we have Worker. Worker was a man who was looking between two different hypotheses for how language works in terms of our learning certain phonemes or sounds that are used in different languages. There are two hypotheses going in. One, the maintenance loss hypothesis, where if you were never exposed to certain words or certain sounds, you would completely fail to develop them, and you would never be able to get them in the future. The other was the functional reorganization hypothesis. This one states that, hey, if you're not exposed in childhood to these sounds, they're not going to sound right to you. However, you may be able to learn to differentiate them with enough time. Here's a fun fact for you. People who grow up learning Japanese, the la and the ra sound that English has sounds identical to them because their language doesn't have any words that differentiate those sounds. They don't exist. No one uses the la and the ra separately. They are put in the same context, or they are covered by the same letter or something like that. And as such, when they hear an English speaker and they're learning English as their second language, and they hear an English speaker say one of those two words with a la or a ra, let's think of lane versus rain. La, the ra, lane, the rain. Those two words would sound identical because they cannot differentiate the L and R sound. Based on the maintenance loss hypothesis, they would never be able to figure that out. And us the same. If we went to a different language where there was a similar thing, where it's like maybe two people, let's say ba and ba, 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 ba. That both sounds like a B sound to us, right? If you are an English speaker, that's a B sound, right? Both of them are under the same letter. But let's say a made-up language, Connie's. Connie's uses the ba and ba sounds, very, very slight differences, and they mean they're two completely separate letters, and they convey different meanings when you put them into a word. If you're an English speaker going over to Connie's, that's going to be a real pain in the ass for you to learn. It's going to sound the same. So now imagine that in real life. However, we have found that of the two hypotheses, functional reorganization is the one that's correct. It is possible for us to learn to differentiate these noises later on. It's not easy, and it's certainly even less easy as you get older and older. The earlier you start, the better. But it is possible, so we know that the maintenance loss hypothesis is incorrect. Next up, we've got Crane and Nakayama. These guys were studying structure independence. This is the one I was just talking about, where it's like you never use structure independent words. You never do like the weird structures like inverting the sentence trying to negate it. I won't go over that since we just talked about it. Sorry, talking a lot. I'll drink some water. Let's see. Johnson and Newport. These guys were talking about second language acquisition. These guys are basically the ones who formally said, hey, we have these three groups of kids. And I think, no, that's the Nicaraguan sign language group, sorry. But they had a bunch of different groups of kids of different ages, right? And they found that, yep, the earlier they were exposed to the new language, the better chance they'd be fully acclimated to it. It's just that simple. Age was the greatest factor than anything else. The younger they were when they started learning another language, the better it was for them overall and how well they took to it. And past a certain age, there was a much greater degree of difficulty. Now, there's supposed to be a fourth study, but I can't find it, so we're just going to move on to the Nicaraguan Sign Language bit. And for those of you who didn't know, learning a sign language is almost the same exact process in the human brain as learning a verbal language. You go through the same exact process, whether it be a second language, your first language, you still have the same critical periods, same everything. And if you're exposed to sign language super late, then you're not going to be able to develop it as efficiently, or you'll never develop a full grammar to it. There was one woman by the name of Jeannie who was misdiagnosed with a mental condition when she was actually deaf. So everyone thought that she was mentally impaired, but turns out the whole time she just couldn't hear anyone. She was diagnosed properly in her 30s, and then as she was given hearing aids and everything, she could never properly develop grammar. She could now hear everyone. She could began to develop a vocabulary. She could learn all the words, but she could never use function words. She couldn't properly put together sentences because she had missed the critical period of her early childhood. So because of that, she was never able to fully... she could be very fluent, for the record. She could express herself very well, use the words. She was a very powerful non-verbal communicator as well, apparently, based on the studies. But she could never recover the grammar because once you miss that ship, there's no going back. The Nicaraguan Sign Language Group kind of told us a similar thing to the Johnson and Newport studies where, hey, even for sign language, we have a similar issue where the late exposures who were told in their mid-teens had much worse results in learning Nicaraguan Sign Language than those who were in the middle and early groups who were, I think, 3 to 4 and then like 8 to 9. We believe that 10's like the cutoff point. It's somewhere around middle childhood that is the real cutoff. Hi, Jacko. Yeah, linguistic science is fucking incredible. There's so much interesting shit going on behind the scenes in our brains to make this travesty work, and it's just love it. Wish the teacher was better, because this is honestly such an interesting topic. But instead, here I am the night before the final exam, teaching myself over from the textbook. But the show goes on. How are you doing though, Jacko? And I see actually quite a few cuties have joined us. I hope you're all having a wonderful, wonderful night. Let's see here. Mars levels. This isn't going to mean anything to anyone, but I just need to know that the computational theory is to linguistic theories, algorithms are to psycholinguistics, and implementation is to neurolinguistics. I just need to know those broad categories are influential on each other. That's like broad overreaches for everything we've been learning over the semester, so I'm not going to bother you with that because it would be a giant pain in the ass to explain, and frankly, I don't think you guys would get much out of it. Computational. Linguistic. Algorithm. Psycholinguistics. Implementation. Neurolinguistics. Alright, speaking of linguistics, got my exam back. Let's go, Jacko. Pay check up. We love to see it. I don't think it counts as scamming when they keep you under the water for several months at a time. I say you take all the money you can and you fucking run with it. That may be my lack of patriotism speaking, though. Alright, let's see. What else can we read over? Yeah, see, here's something interesting. Incremental sentence processing. this is what we like to call the two hypotheses for this. That was very, very eloquent, I know. So, what happens when you hear a sentence? Do you hear the entire thing and then interpret it? Or do you start interpreting it as soon as possible? What I mean by this is, think of a properly long sentence like, the dog went to the store to buy X, Y, and Z. So are you going to wait for the entire thing? Or are you going to process the first half and then the second half? Most likely, the second. The brain just starts to interpret on its own whenever it can. This is part of the top-down processing that we mentioned earlier, where it's just kind of like, okay, autocomplete, autocomplete, autocomplete. And because of that, the brain sometimes makes mistakes. Because garden path sentences exist, where it's something where you kind of need to go back and reread it to make sense of it afterwards. I don't have a good example of the garden path sentence, so give me 1 second. Here. Here we go. The classic one that's used as an example is, the horse raced past the barn, fell. So you read that sentence like, wait, what? Because you think that raced is going to be the main verb of the sentence. Then it turns out that fell is actually the main verb of the sentence, so you kind of have to go back and reevaluate what it means. At first you're thinking, okay, so the horse is racing past the barn. But then you're like, wait, what? Fell? And then you have to go back and say, okay, so the horse that was raced past the barn fell down. And you have to go through like this second wave of processing to figure out what the hell you just read. And that's kind of how we have proof that we do in fact use this secondary method. I'm gonna quickly do... Alright. What else? We've talked about aphasia. We've talked about the people who only gained the ability to hear in their 30s and what happened with that. We don't need to talk about Turner syndrome because it's not on the exam, and frankly, it's kind of depressing. What else do we have here? This one's fairly simple. The McMahon studies were dealing with the processing time that was needed for a human to parse a sentence. And we found that words that were transformed multiple times, think like adding endings and like plurals and all that, took longer processing time than words that weren't. So, makes sense. Simpler words are easier for your brain to say, okay, got it. And then when there's extra steps, it's going to take a little bit longer. But that was our formal learning that, hey, instead of just being stored as a separate word in this brain, you probably have this base word and then it gets added to or something, instead of just having race, raced, races, all as separate words. It's like race, and then you have an application that changes what it is. We have the different types of mistakes you can make with it. We've already talked about those. Spoonerisms aren't on the exam. Brain plasticity is important, but it's just kind of a very simple thing where, like, hey, fun fact, did you know that a child who's had their entire left hemisphere of the brain removed can develop language normally if it's done at a young enough age? Because the right side of the brain will actually take over language function. When, for those who didn't know, language is typically entirely within the left hemisphere of your brain. It's also why people with split brain surgery still only speak with one voice instead of talking over themselves. Because if you didn't know, it is possible to have split brain surgery, typically in extreme cases, obviously, and your body will basically act separately. Your left side will do things that your right side didn't know. If you cover your right eye, or is it your left eye, then your right brain won't be able to process it. And if you have both hemispheres of your brain, covering your right eye means you're going to have more difficulty talking about it. Because you're seeing it with your left eye, which is hooked up to your right brain, but without anything to bridge the gap between it. Suddenly, you're seeing the object, but you're completely unable to describe it. But the second you take your hand off your right eye, and your left brain is given access to it again, then you can describe it just fine. It's very fascinating seeing stuff like that. Obviously, I wouldn't wish split brain surgery on anyone who didn't need it, but still. Let's see. We have the different kinds of bootstrapping. That's important to review. So, bootstrapping has to do with learning what a word does, what it is. Let's say you're a child, and I spoke the sentence, Charlie zoinked Emily. Now, zoinked doesn't have an official definition, doesn't mean anything to you. But, from the context of the sentence, you can determine that zoinked is probably some sort of transitive verb. It is the action of the sentence, and it is an action conveyed between one person to another. So bootstrapping is basically the different ways that you can determine what a word is. What I just described is based on syntax, that is syntactic bootstrapping, figuring out what a word is based on the context of the sentence. There's other ways to do it, though. I have them written down over here. Here we go. Let's say that we know that, let's think of a fun word. A zagrat. We know that a zagrat is an object. We have seen a zagrat. What the fuck is a zagrat? I don't know. But let's say it's an object. We know it is an object, which means that in a sentence, we're likely to identify it as a noun. If we know that it's an object, we're not going to use a grat as a verb. At the same time, if we know that to flub is an action of some sort, we're going to use it as a verb. We're not going to say, the flub. I mean, that's actually probably a bad example, because we do sometimes use verbs as nouns in sentences. Oh, hello, Evangeline. But yeah, what's another good example? I grotted down the road. Grotted. So we just hear someone say grot. We know grot is some form of action. You're going to use it as a verb because you're not going to say the grot. Doesn't mean anything. It's just that simple. Those are the two main types. There is a third type for very young children. It is called what is it called? Personic bootstrapping, which is basically just they hear the stressed syllables in a word and they attempt to okay, that stressed syllable means that we're in a new word. It's kind of the least useful of the three, to be completely honest, but for some younger kids that can help them start developing all that jazz. Let's see. We've already gone through the calendar in terms of at what ages we develop different abilities, in terms of language acquisition. Hold on just a moment. What else do we got here? Okay, thank God none of the stuff from the last exam was on this, because I would have cried a little. Here we go. Let's look into psycholinguistics a little, shall we? So, we got some basic definitional things here. Speech signals are broken down into parts, and any of these sounds produced are known as acoustics. Fundamental frequency is how fast variations in air pressure occur, which affects our pitch. Intensity and magnitude is the volume of the sound. We've been told not to worry about spectrograms too much, which is basically just a visualized form of a sound wave. You'll see different little peaks and everything, telling you the amplitude and all that, with little bands called formants. We've already talked about bottom and top, or bottom down and top. Bottom up and top down processing. Bottom down being, hey, we have the entire sentence, break it down word by word, and top down being context processing as well as, just autocomplete in the brain. Okay. Lexical decision time we've spoken about. Oh, interesting. Here we go. Something that might be worth noting here is that when you're trying to recall a word, words that have a lot of neighbors, meaning words that sound similar to them, actually take longer to get. So let's say the word run. It's a very simple word. Run, fun, gun, all that stuff, all in a similar neighborhood. Very short, 3-letter word. But it could theoretically take longer for you to recall the word run than it could for you to call a different word that is relatively common but with less, more uncommon but with less around it. I'm trying to think of orange. It's going to be easier for you to recall orange than run, because orange, it's a fairly common word, but nothing rhymes with orange. That's another fun fact if you didn't know that. So yeah, it'll be easier for you to recall that. Of course, when you get into more uncommon words, it becomes harder though. Let's say I'm talking about small bladed objects. First thing that's probably going to come to someone's mind is a knife. It's the easy one. It's the top of your brain. it's something that shows up in your memory fairly often. You use a fork and knife for your food. It's up there. You know what probably doesn't immediately show up? Stiletto. Unless you've been listening to a lot of Killer Queen, stiletto is probably not on the top of your list. Wait, why am I saying Killer? No. I'm sorry. Now I'm fucking it up. Stiletto is a song by Billy Joel, I think. Sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent. But, point being, your brain is going to more easily recall the common word that shows up in your vocabulary a lot versus the rarer version. Or bayonet. You're not going to think of bayonet before you think of knife, most likely. Unless your name is Father Anderson. Parsing. We already talked about priming in terms of some words will activate different words in your memory, making them easier to recall for a little bit. Oh, here's another one of the fun examples where when you read someone's palm, you think about hands, but it also activates tree in your brain because, palm tree. Even though the context had nothing to do with trees. Oh, Mebby, thank you very much for the hydrate. And the posture check. And the stretch. Oh, my bones. Okay. I've lost my train of thought. Yes, I'm doing well. I think we've been making good progress. I feel a lot more confident than I did at the beginning of this hour and a half, so that's good at least. I just hope that all my notes include everything I need to know. That's the main worry. Like, I'm going to study all this, and it turns out I get what do you call? Something's going to fly at me from left fields. Yee! This reminded me when I used to do Professor Con bits, like, way back when. I think that was, like, freshman year, when I was going over some, like, basic Bio 101 topics. That was a good time. I think people would really like ASMR lectures, though. That'd be cute. Oh, here's something interesting. That palm example I just mentioned, between the palm and, when thinking about the different versions to use for something, it takes around a quarter of a second, 250 milliseconds, to decide which variation of a word you're going to use, even if the context already preordains one. So that's interesting. Words with multiple meanings are just innately going to take a little bit more processing time in your brain. Some things are also parsed strangely. Now that we've cleared out the fact that your brain is always trying to analyze a sentence as soon as possible, we can say this. You start to hear the sentence, "The warehouse fires," and that before the sentence finishes, that could be either a noun or a verb. For instance, it could be the warehouse fires workers over 60, or the warehouse fires were devastating, but thanks to the firefighters we were able to put them out before anyone got hurt. So every day you are listening to hundreds of sentences or reading hundreds of sentences where you get to that midway point and your brain is already processing ahead of you. And now you've reached this critical point. It's like your brain may temporarily misinterpret it as one, before it's clarified as the other seconds later. These temporary ambiguities kind of just show us a little bit of how the brain works, because that's why we see garden path sentences and why you have to double back after seeing some things. Is that everything? Oh, thank you for the cult totem contribution. The totem knowledge grows, indeed. Better spatial. Okay, there we go. We got a little bit of closure over here on the brain, what do you call it? Brain imaging front, where we have event-related potentials and the magnetoencephalogram. Both have high temporality, aka it's really easy to watch them work over time, but poor spatial knowledge, versus the FPET and fMRIs, which have a slow temporality due to them measuring blood and oxygen levels, but better spatial imaging. So that's good to know. Oh, I got you, Jacko. There you go. Some smoochies for you. Thank you for the lurky, Evangeline. Alright, what else do we need to do? I feel not too bad. Telegraphic phase is when children mostly use open class words. Holophrastic phase is when we tend to see when children can tell the difference between a dog chasing a cat and a cat chasing a dog, as well as they can produce one-word utterances with intended meaning. 9-month-olds prefer iambic to trochaic words, which I think is just where the stress on the syllable is. Beloved. I'm gonna actually just quickly look up. Iambic definition. Wow, that's very fucking useful. We love being told an iambic sentence is something made out of iambs. That's very useful. Thank you, textbook. Or Google. Textbook didn't say it that time. Iambic is second syllable. Tro is first. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. 9-month-olds apparently prefer words where the second syllable is stressed versus the first syllable being stressed. Which, knowing that what we do about the bootstrapping that takes the stress of the syllables, that makes sense, because they're trying to say, hey, the word's over when we hear that word stress. So if they're trying to use that, it makes sense. We talked about overextension and how Sometimes kids can assign a word to a broader class of objects or creatures than it actually is. Talked about that. We talked about specific language impairment, where it only affects their language facilities, no problems elsewhere in terms of mental facilities. They tend to have difficulties with suffixes, function words, and question movement. Okay. Alright. Oh god, am I done? I don't know. I feel like I'm not done. And I'm worried because I'm not sure what I'm missing. That's the real scary part. Ugh. I hate exams. But such is life. I will survive. I'm gonna get at least halfway decent grade, and if I don't know, I'm gonna cheat. So, it'll be okay in the end of the day. There's some smoochies for you all for just being sweet and sticking around while I stress. Bum, ba-bum, 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 bum. How are you, darlings? Everything going okay? Oh yeah, it's a Wednesday. Heck. Cheating is moral. It's moral when it's getting me a degree. Program better, oof. Programming is pain. I have learned this firsthand. But it is not my cup of tea. I know that much. Well, I feel pretty good. I studied for like 2.5 hours now. Before this, I went to a review session in person. So, I feel like I've done as much as I probably can. Oh, I'm sorry, Jacko. I wish we could keep you for longer. Are you going to be home for Christmas? Or do I need to get you a Christmas gift early? Of course, by a Christmas gift, I just mean more recordings, but still. That beep scared me. Smart folks. My brain is going to explode. You're gonna be home? Good. You deserve to relax for Christmas. Oh, you know what I can take a minute to do since we're just kind of chilling here? I can show you guys some cool shit. Hold on. I'm gonna get to show you guys. Would you like to see a behind the scenes in the YouTube stuff? I'm gonna quickly see if there's like a There's something I can use to check something. Because I know there's like a Twitch tracker. I'm wondering if something like that exists for YouTube. Interesting, I can. Yeah, Social Blade. Detailed statistics. I want to see, like, the funky little chart where it shows me growth over time. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, let's go over. Do I put it on the game chat? No, I'm just gonna make a tiny screen here. And then, like, wiggle my way over. Wobble, 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 wobble. And we'll go make a thingy. Oh no, I'm gonna sneeze. Pardon me. Let's see what we got. What was I doing? Oh, right. Do. My brain is empty. Let's make a new window capture. I can just use an existing one. Cat for just chatting. Oh, there we go. Why is there two? I don't know where this one is. Oh no. Oh, it's over here. Got it. Blah 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 blah. I'm just gonna expand. Here we go. So, we've been making some good strides recently. Twitch, I think we've been kind of stagnating. Let's see. Yeah. It's fine. We've been doing pretty good on the ASMR streams recently. I know there's a way to do game breakdown. Oh damn. Final Fantasy has finally overtaken Binding of Isaac as the most streamed game on my menu. Damn, Library and Lobotomy took up good chunks too. What is this? Monster Hunter World. God, I have spent a lot of hours streaming. Ay, Dios mío. Yeah, let's do the followers per hour. Because I think No, it's not here. Oh, here's ASMR. I want to know my ASMR details. It feels like it's been fairly consistent. Done a few ASMR streams. Oh, I think one of these was the B-movie stream. God. But yeah, we can tell that we have the new ones. $251. Interesting. Yeah. But as an overview, we've been doing okay. Yeah. We peaked around March of 2020. It's kind of been going a little bit downhill since then. Hi, cousin. Thank you for the hydrate and posture check. Haru, I hope you are having a fantastic day. Ever stream. Ooh. No, you're the cute cousin. Fairly linear. I'm curious, what games? Okay, so yeah. Highest by stream time. Max viewers doesn't really mean anything. Because, oh. Ikotane. Hey, you're sweet, you're kind, you're cute. I hope you're having a lovely, lovely evening. Keep on doing your best, because we love ya. Fucking sweet bean. Average viewers, though. These don't mean much because, unfortunately, this both happened during like marathons. Same thing for, I think with tax evasion, we just got raided. It was like a huge raid, and we just kept it throughout the most suffering. Really? That's not a big sample size. Minecraft is pretty consistently good. So is Monster Hunter World. No, you're a darling. How dare. I really don't want to go back to fucking Overwatch 2. Slime Rancher was pretty consistent. Here's the thing, it's so difficult to tell. Because I never really know whether like these are a product of the game or when I was streaming them. Oh no, Jacko, I'm sorry. Get smooched. One shot, beloved. Statistics. Oh wow. Our stream. It's been fairly flat recently. I'm not sure if that's a problem. Twitch followers don't really mean much. YouTube followers, though, or subscribers, though, they're good. Future projections. Darn. User summary. TBD. I guess I'm not high enough to make it on the charts at all. Makes sense. Unfortunately, it means that we're not really getting much that's interesting in terms of data. However, we can go here. We've been making much better progress recently on YouTube. I've been doing more consistent uploads, as you can see. It updates when I look. And seeing how it's my first time on Social Blade. Yeah, we've been doing... I think really what's been pushing me forward here is the Limbus Company content, because these videos have been pulling in so many more views compared to my normal videos. Like, let's take a quick look. Oh. We go into our video section. The ASMR videos tend to rack up a few. They're really good for, how do you call? Watch hours. People will watch the ASMR videos, and those in the playlist tend to go for a decent amount. We got 30, 69, nice, 73, 48. Oh, I'm happy this one's doing a little bit better now. 120 here. And the most recent's only at 18 so far. So, like, those tend to bring in a good amount. They do well in terms of watch hours, which is very important because we do need, as the kids say, a metric fuck ton of watch hours. Because as we go over here to the Earn tab, this is our goal right now. We're trying to get here. We need 500 subscribers, and we need 3,000 watch hours. Now, I'm not feeling as bad about this now, because about a month and a half ago, we were at 200 watch hours. So I reckon probably by the middle of next year, if not a little earlier, we're going to have this watch hour total down. And as for the subscribers, I don't know. Those are slower coming. But at the same time, we had 10 less last week. The growth rate's been all over the place for these. And yep, 28 last month. Nope, touch fluffy tail. I got you. Bah! There you go. Tail touching. Really, I'm not sure what else I can do in this situation. I think we're doing fine. I think maybe posting a little bit more Limbus not Limbus. Yes, actually. More Limbus is a good idea, because that's doing fairly well. But I also think that Lethal Company is obviously in everyone's purview right now, so it would be nice to get some of that in. But back to the point I was trying to illustrate before. 16 views, 39, 6, 77, 800, 300, 120, 9, 800, 14, 46, 16, 1, 5, 73, 2.2 thousand. So yeah, Limbus is definitely doing good work. Sometimes we'll get a flop, like this one only got 200, but even then, compared to our average video, it's pretty good. 1,000. 1.1. 243, this is another of the lower ones. 1.6. 2K. And of course, the original that really popped off for some reason. 6.5K. I don't understand how this works sometimes. All I know that is I can try my best to get there. So if any of y'all have ideas or suggestions, I'd love to hear them, but we'll see what we can do. God. This is... I think I'd go back in time if I clicked on that. Gosh. 2 years ago. I was a baby. The fucking first Hollow Knight playthrough. Ah. God. 0.1 hours. This is when we... This was... Look at that! Look at that! This is like one of the first games I played. I didn't even have the little 2D model yet. I was just using my little reference image in the bottom corner. And then we evolved. We became the GIF sprite. We finally got a background. And then we get the big leap forward. Oh yeah, this is the old starting soon screen. Then when we got the Kota. God, we've been using Kota as background for a while. And then we have a pre-saturation con. Then we hop over. When was saturated con? I think saturated con was like this April, right? Was he? Or was that 2022? I don't remember. Yeah, I gotta like... Well, let's find a different vein that we can mine. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Go into the playlists. And let's look... This, I know that this started in June, so this isn't gonna be late enough. Maybe Stardew Valley. We picked up Stardew Valley all the time. No, we still have the same finish here. The return of Stardew Valley. Yep, now we have the new intro screen. And now we're saturated, but this was 2 months ago. Yeah. Yeah, they did take the same amount of videos, didn't they? That's interesting. I think their total playtime is fairly similar, too. I wish there was a way to like total the amount of hours. This collabs list is nowhere near complete. I stopped doing this after a while. Community? Oh right, this exists. But yeah. I've gone off on a little tangent now, but that's the state of the channel. I think we're doing fairly well. And it's nice to finally be making some actual progress on YouTube after like 2.5 years. I gotta start getting ready for a 3rd anniversary. Isn't that fucking crazy? This March, 3 months from now, I gotta get in contact with I've already talked to my my art mom to see if I can get a little something. I think some of you know what I'm talking about. But yeah. I guess I'm done studying. Whatever happens tomorrow, happens tomorrow. Hopefully it's for the best. Darlings, is there anything that you would like before I depart for the night? Since this is an ASMR stream, I'm just going to take some more quick requests. Anything that you want, feel free to ask. Oh, talk about a perfect time for an ad. God damn it. Awful timing. Now, on the off chance anyone heard me, feel free to request. Oh. Alright, I do think we're back now. If any of you have some ASMR related things you'd like, feel free to ask. What? Oh, fuck. Uh-oh. Kota. Thank you for the raid. Good evening, dearies. My name is GM ConCon. I'm your local item to Foxboy. Go by he, him pronouns. Do a variety of streaming content, and right now we're just doing a little bit of ASMR. Winton. Winton. Hello, Kota. How was the stream? How was, I'm assuming, Overwatch 2? Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for giving them the shout out, Lumpy. Did y'all know that like Kota is super sweet and cute and definitely didn't piss the bed? Truly, a blessed being. Only a little cursed. Mm-hmm. I did not piss the bed. Not recently, at least. Mm-hmm. But I do hope that you guys had a lovely, lovely time. And for those of you who just came in, hey, why don't you tell me something you enjoy about your streamer and your favorite flavor of ice cream? It is okay, Kota. I know how to make it better. I have a patent pending method. Would you like a sample? I promise it's definitely not just calling you sweet things and kissing your ears until you melt into a little puddle. That would be illegal. That would be a war crime. I take that as a positive. I do hope you had a lovely, lovely time, though. Did you acquire the victory royale? You got the skills to pay the bills, Shotty. You gotta make it count. Up. I've got to admit, I enjoy the kissing thing way too much. Seeing people just hit the floor in chat as I do it is just... it's extremely entertaining. I'm happy you think so, maybe. That's just how it be. Rat Queen, I know that you've requested the ear licks before. I know your sins. Yep, and it's your right to be kissed into a puddle. Suffer. I completely lost my train of thought. We were talking about something before, and it is just gone. That's fine. Sometimes it's better just not to think. Wouldn't you agree? You gotta take the full head empty course. Who dares message me? Oh, it's just a cutie. But I do hope that everyone is having a lovely, lovely day. Y'all only deserve the best, you know? Make
sure to have a snack, drink some water, whatever helps you feel your best. Take care of yourselves, okay? And, Kota, I'm sure you've already gone already, but please get some rest and try to recover from that awful stench from spraying the tree.
Take a shower, Stinky. I'll stretch. Oh, my bones. Ooh. Oof. I think my entire shoulder popped out of socket there. Oof. And there it goes back in. We're right. Nothing to worry about, just a little bit of bone crackles as a treat. Ay, Dios mío. Easier said than done, baby. Easier said than done. I'm just naturally made out of, what's the one SpongeBob meme? I have glass bones and paper skin. That's me, just the glass bones part, though. Or you know what? No, I don't have glass bones. I have glow stick bones. They just crackle. I haven't started glowing yet, but maybe it's only a matter of time. God damn it, Blippi. Yep, that's the guy. But since you darlings came from Kota, I will ask y'all.
If anyone has ASMR requests, by all means, feel free to tell me. I would love to try some new things, or old things that you would all enjoy.
I'm allowed to be a tiny bit evil. What is the button again? Where do I make it? Alright, there we go. A round of kisses. Alright. We were actually gonna raid Kota before this ended, but I guess we gotta find a new person now. Let's see, who do we have? Ooh. I see one of my friends is playing a horror game.
Mad Father. I remember that one. Who else do we have around? Toke. Sorry, I really don't want to re-enter Apex. No shade. Just not my cup of tea. What else do we have? There you go. A bit of ear licking as a treat. Oh, you know. I wonder what to do. Unfortunately, I'm not really suited up for a true ASMR stream right now. There'll still be one on Friday, though. A proper one next time. Oh yeah, so for those of you who do like ASMR content and would like to see me do an actual stream of this, typically I do those on Friday nights. So feel free to drop a follow if you want that, or if you want to see the stuff that we already got, feel free to look at the YouTube channel. We have a playlist devoted to the different ASMR videos with the different themes and all that jazz. If you want a relaxing experience and don't feel like waiting. Thank you for a little sippy, maybe. Let's see. Chat, what are y'all feeling? We could rate into Lethal Company. Or what is Heavy Rain? I'm unfamiliar with that. Old PS3 game on a sad story. I see. We could be down for that. It's either that or a horror game, so let's just go with Ora. Yeah. Sean! Is that a common enough glitch for us to make it our entry phrase for the raid? I see. Let's do... I do this. Do we need should we enunciate it more? All right. Thank you, darlings, very much for coming tonight. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful rest. Get some food, get some water, whatever helps you feel your best. And I hope to see you all again in the future. Adios. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Oh yeah, you're all cute. Bye.